One sec.
Hello,
Hold on.
everyone. Oh, what's going on?
Good.
Good. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to give it about 45 seconds to a minute, make sure everyone gets logged on, and we'll wait here for a second. Akshat, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's pretty warm here in Chicago. I know you're traveling, right?
Yes, I'm in the Bay Area. It's 50 degrees here today. So
Nice.
great. I think we should get started here. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, 5 Essential KPI Dashboards Every Manufacturer Needs. My name is Abby Bauman. I am the Director of Marketing here at Amper. I'm just quickly moderating this presentation. So if you have any technical issues or questions, you can use the panel at the bottom of your Zoom navigation to message me. And throughout the webinar, we'll be collecting any questions and we will save those for the end. And as a reminder, we are recording this and everyone will receive a copy of this recording as well as the slides. So with that, I'm going to introduce Akshat and he can kind of talk about his background and we can get started.
Great. Thanks, Abby. Hey, everyone. My name is Akshat. I'm co-founder and CEO at Amper. Grew up around manufacturing my whole life. That's actually a photo me growing up in India. My dad runs factories, and I've grown up seeing the shop floor firsthand throughout my life. So always been really passionate about the industry, and started the company about 5 years ago, and really excited to be here today. And the overall goal of this topic today is going to be, what are some 5 dashboards that are practical and essential for manufacturers to make the most of the shop floor. So, diving right into it, so just for context, I've structured this in a way where it's both related to a case study or a story, but also gives you a sense of what information you might want to seek. And with these topics, I would encourage you to see if you can transform your existing data on your shop floor to something on these lines, or hopefully just take away some learnings for future reference. Okay, so the first dashboard aims to answer a question, which is, what's happening on my shop floor right now? And it can often be hard to tell, am I having a good day or a bad day on the shop floor? And it's a very basic question, but often you get different answers. For example, are you on track to meet your production goals? Or have there been surprises today, like machine going down unexpectedly, not having the material? And so all of these things really impact ultimately your customers and certainly your employees. And so the reason it matters long term is meeting quality, cost, and delivery targets rely on avoiding production surprises day to day. And by having dashboards that give you a real time look into what is happening on your shop floor, you can quickly identify issues proactively and respond to it before they become major issues. So, to that end, here's one example of a dashboard that we have at Amper. So just taking a look at this, you can see this is a certain cell of Doosan CNC machines. And a dashboard like this might capture a lot of key information. For example, over here, you can see the machine is in production because it's green. You can see how many parts have been made, like 1.3 thousand. And by it being green, it means it's on track and we're on track to meet the goal. As well as a quick look at, who's the operator running the machine, what is the reason that it's down, what is the part number or the job number. So essentially a dashboard like this gives you a quick answer to what is happening, am I having a good day or a bad day. So for example, over here, I can quickly understand that, okay, I lost a bunch of time because of having no operator available. That way you don't have to necessarily ask everyone on the shop floor, like, hey, has this machine been running? Are we on track or not? This is just another transformation of that to show you some more metrics around, machine uptime. A lot of manufacturers have goals of keeping the machines running, 80% of the time, and this gives quickly helps answer that question. And so, to that end, what KPIs can compose a dashboard like that? So, here are a few that might be applicable depending on your shop floor. So, a simple thing around machine state: is it down? Is it idle? Is it in production? How many parts are made and how many have been scrapped? What is the cycle time against the target, which is usually the performance component? Whose employee, how much setup time has gone into it, and obviously which part and job number are running on them. And so, from our customers, here's some examples that folks have done with having this dashboard. So, in high mix, low volume manufacturing, like job shops, you might have an operator that's struggling with, say, a setup or some other issue in getting a machine up and running. And having this visibility, you can proactively see that if someone is struggling and walk over and try and help them. Another one is, your machines have gone down the whole day and you're going to be at risk for your on-time delivery. Seeing this information in real time, you can get ahead of it by proactively letting your customers know of any potential delays so that they're not surprised at the end of it. Another one is, you might have a hot job that needs to be shipped out, and there's often a tough conversation at the end of the shift that you have to ask operators to stay overtime or even into the weekend. And by understanding what's happening right now, you can proactively get ahead of it and maybe way earlier in the shift, bring it up to your operators that I don't think we're going to meet a daily target today. We might have to ask folks to stay for overtime. And it's a much easier conversation than last minute right at the end of the shift. And obviously, I think if supervisors and plant managers were Fitbits or tracking, like they'd be walking miles every day, looking at what's happening on the shop floor, which is obviously very important to spend as much time as possible on the shop floor. But a tool like this or a dashboard that shows what's happening can avoid some of those unnecessary walks. So here's a quick example of a customer that was able to successfully use a real-time dashboard to tell if they're having a good day or not. So Mitotech Precision, they are a CNC machine shop in Wisconsin, and they were looking to track, by hour, how many parts have been made, but it really wasn't as actionable, and they wanted more data to understand what's really driving machine downtime. And so over here on the top right, you can see a little dashboard set up, and essentially they use a real-time dashboard to look at overall what's happening right now, how many parts did we make, and are we exceeding the amount of downtime that we had planned on. And in addition, they also layered automated escalation alerts as part of this dashboard initiative, where if the machine's been down for more than 2 hours, a text message gets sent out to the right individuals that they can respond to these issues. And as a result of this, they automatically saw an increase in productivity just by that Hawthorne effect. All of us are wired the same way, where if we can see metrics in real time in a visual way, we're automatically more motivated to meet the daily goals and win the day. And on the flip side is just lower downtime by reducing the response time by having these visual dashboards. Okay, the next dashboard we're going to talk about aims to answer the question, how do I increase my production capacity and machine utilization? For folks in the machining world, there's often a saying, if you're not making chips, you're not making money. And how do you really improve something like cutting time of your spindles without measuring it? And so, understanding true capacity is essential, especially right now in June 2021. The indexes for manufacturing are at all-time highs, and backlogs of orders are also at peak levels, which means really understanding where you're losing capacity is essential to being able to improve your machine utilization. And so, a very basic graph might be, overall, what has been our capacity utilization. So this graph, for example, shows month over month. Sorry, I believe this would be day over day. What's been the overall machine uptime, which can help answer basic question like, should I buy a new machine? Do we have the capacity to take on new work, and so on. This is another view of a heat map that can show you by cell or by machine over multiple months, where you're losing or gaining capacity. We've had customers use this data to either justify or avoid having to buy additional equipment. When you see a machine being used only 20% of the time, it can be hard to justify spending $250,000 on new equipment. The second is identifying what kind of shift changes you can make. So this could be adding a new shift because you're at capacity, or maybe moving your schedules around as well to optimize for machine utilization. Another report that comes out of such a dashboard is change over time. So from the shift start to the first part being made is another area that you can identify for capacity being lost. And finally, any ERP system or even within Amper, you can see, what are the total labor hours or the signed in hours by operators, and using that as a metric to compare how much machine uptime are you getting against your labor hours can also help you assess, is it a machine capacity issue or is it just simply a labor shortage? And while your gut might obviously conclude that it's certainly a labor shortage which is prevalent across the industry, there might be opportunities to improve your productivity without having to necessarily hire new operators. And so, here's a quick case study of a customer of ours, Distaco. It's a division of Dover, and they used capacity dashboards to essentially move to lights out production and increase their capacity. So, just walking a bit more into this, they did an experiment where they tested out lights out production with Amper, where they had alerts being sent out when a machine would go down. And essentially, they looked for an increase in machine uptime week over week. And what they found was pretty interesting. On the machine that had the pallet pool machines, they added an extra 4 hours of capacity each day on that single machine. And we all know that the cost of an hour of capacity even can be pretty meaningful. And ultimately, this data around capacity justified adding 2 additional pallet pool machines and truly making that cell go fully unattended. So the reason I bring this up is because justifying new machines can be pretty hard when your machines have pretty low machine utilization. But on the flip side, if you can show a process change or automation or just some evidence that investing in certain areas can unlock capacity, that can be pretty meaningful, especially as folks are looking for ways to unlock capacity. All right. Next up, we have how do I reduce my downtime? In losses of production, you obviously have quality, machine downtime, and cycle time. And we've often seen one of the more controllable aspects, especially in automated equipment, is how do you reduce machine downtime? So, related to this, you can, once you get a good grip on where you're really losing a downtime, you can have a consistent pipeline of improvement projects that help you identify the 80-20 of what are the drivers that are holding back your machines from running. So here's a quick example of Pareto charts that show downtime causes, for example. So on this chart, we can see the leading cause of downtime here is tools, which accounted for 52 hours in the last week across the shop floor. And in addition, you can see how much time went in maintenance and setup. And so this might not be typically obvious, right? Like you can have tools being the real downtime leading cause, whereas you might assume something like setup or changeover might be causing most of the issues. And 52 hours lost last week, let's assume it costs $100 an hour for machine downtime. that's almost $5,000 lost just because of that one issue. You might, consider investing in better tools or in a way that is justified from that cost. Here's just another view of, what a dashboard might look like to understand where you're losing downtime. And this shows, again, pie charts and graphs around leading causes of downtime. So again, the question is like, what do you do with this information at the end of the day? So here are some examples that we've seen with our customers. So setups and changeover times can often be a big cause of downtime that is controllable. And so there's a lean concept of SMED, which is single minute exchange of dies, to identify how you can reduce the setup times. We have an excellent piece of content on how you can run your own SMED event. So I suggest checking that out as well on our website. The second goes back to that case that we just spoke about around investing in better tooling. Next can be identifying how much time is lost because of skilled labor shortages. And that might lead you to changing a pay incentive structure. Once you can quantify that, man, I lost, hundreds of hours of machine capacity because of not having skilled labor. That might lead you to question, is your pay competitive? Are there ways that you can attract more talent and so on? What are some process bottlenecks in routings and quotes? And also justifying investments like the talent pool change for robots, cobots, and so on. And so the dimension that we typically suggest looking at downtime is by reason, sub-reason, machine, part numbers, jobs, operators. And you really need to play with this data in order to see where the anomalies are. So having these dimensions as you do your analysis is going to be really helpful. All right, so the fourth dashboard is how's my team performing? And building a high performance team stems from having the accountability, the coaching culture, and the systems in place to really empower folks to be at the level best. And we believe having this data is the first step to having a really productive meeting around accountability and understanding what resources are needed, rather than just using data as a way to blame or have big brother. So here's a quick example of a dashboard where you can see who are the top operators when it comes to actual machine utilization when they're signed in and on the shop floor. And we've seen customers that have actually had pay incentives where by getting more machine uptime out, you can actually be eligible for different bonuses. So really aligning your customers' goals with your incentive-based structure. Another interesting dashboard is holding the front office accountable, meaning engineers, maintenance, quality, and so on. All these other functions that are as critical as having operators run the machines efficiently. So we've often seen in our customers that bottlenecks can also be caused by missing programs or quality issues and so on. And so what we suggest is having dashboards that hold folks accountable to how long it takes them to respond and arrive at the machine so that they can help operators get the machine up and running. And so over here, we can see the response time for programming is 180 minutes, which is over 3 hours. This might reveal a different problem around process change in order for the engineering team to support operators faster. Now, the way you can collect this information, just to give you an example, on Amper's app is this is a view for operators to use in order to call for help and support. So all they got to do is say, I want to make a new call. I want to call my programming team. They can type a message in such as, I need some help with a part number. I'm having some quality issues. And they hit submit. And a text message and email gets sent out to the right team. And what's neat is that it's actually tracking the response time it's taking for them to arrive at the machine. So just another way for operators to be empowered to really get the help they need. And interestingly, not only will this show you the response time metrics, but it would also show you, which teams are getting called more often. So you might realize that the reason that, let's say, a maintenance team takes really long to respond is they're constantly getting calls from the shop floor, like 100 calls a day, and they simply can't get um, to folks to like help them out. So all of this to say that having dashboards that really capture your team's performance, both on the shop floor but also supporting roles, helps you have a productive conversation and really orient conversations, not about just hitting numbers of machine uptime and so on, but really understanding where are the bottlenecks and how can folks be supported. And finally, and this is probably one of the toughest dashboards to really have up and running, is what is your plan's OEE? But getting to this point is really healthy because you can understand not just one or two metrics, but across three metrics on machine uptime, cycle time, and quality, how you're performing. And so, the goal of every plant is to deliver good parts on time at the quoted cost, but, what's really holding it back? And so by collecting your OEE data, you can get a complete picture of your operational health across all these different functions. And so, typically we've seen folks set it up on a cell basis um, or an overall plant basis as well. So I know we have a couple of minutes left on this webinar, but overall the goal is to improve your quality, delivery, and cost by using OEE as a leading indicator. And really by capturing this information, having it really visual, you'll get the chance to understand what's holding you back across all these different metrics. And that really supercharges your lean transformation and energizes those conversations in your production meetings, in your engineering meetings. And so, by having those OEE dashboards, you can simplify the goals for the entire plant and identify where your bottlenecks are. This last part is a bit of a plug with Amper, so just a warning. So, we've seen folks really want to collect data from the shop floor and level up the way they're looking at production. But these are typical reasons why folks are held back. Limited IT resources, challenges in integrating new and old machines. What do you really do with this data? And finally, cost. And when I started Amper, the goal was really to make it as simple, affordable, and accessible for manufacturers of all sizes. And essentially, this has been the status quo, whether it's on tally sheets, pen and paper, whiteboards, and there are obvious drawbacks of these. And so with a tool like Amper, I'd suggest looking at all the options out there when it comes to shop floor data collection. But our technology essentially looks at the electrical heartbeat of a machine. So you can have a new machine or an old machine. They all use electricity. And the way it works is you clip the sensor around the electrical wire, it reads the heartbeat, and it produces real-time data. So you can get set up in 10, 15 minutes on any kind of machine, new or old. And for anyone on this webinar, we are giving completely free trials. So if you'd like to take it for a spin on 2 machines, get that real-time visibility, try it out for a couple of weeks, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to set one up and ship you out a box that would look something like this. And even with a month's worth of data, it's amazing how many changes you can identify in your business. So really excited about that. And we do have another webinar coming up in another 2 weeks or so around how do you unlock production capacity without having to hire or invest in new equipment. So be on the lookout for that. But I think let's move on to Q&A.
Yeah, so we had a couple of questions come in, Akshat. The first one is about how do you make sure your team is using all of these dashboards? I think everyone can kind of relate to having this data accessible to them, but how do you make sure people are reviewing it on a daily, weekly basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've seen being pretty effective is integrating these dashboards into some kind of meeting or review that you already have in place. So for example, a lot of manufacturers have a daily walk on the shop floor, and integrating a review of this dashboard on the daily walk, or it could even be on the weekly production meeting. So I think having it almost as a ritual of starting these meetings, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, with some data, really helps integrate into the existing workflow.
Cool. Next question is, we have an ERP system that gives us financial reports already. How did these types of dashboards tie into that?
Yeah. So I'm really fascinated with the idea of what are some lagging indicators and leading indicators. Lagging indicators are similar reports to probably what you're referencing, like your P&L and so on. Um, and the dashboards that we cover today are primarily leading indicators, meaning these are the levers that you can use to actually impact your end of month financial metrics. And so these are more tactical day to day that are operationally focused, would definitely continue using those dashboards and reports from your ERP. But this really adds that extra glass pane into your shop floor.
Great. It looks like those were the two questions we had to come in, unless anyone wants to do a last minute question here. Otherwise, we can wrap up early. And as Akshat mentioned, be sure to register for our webinar in 2 weeks. You can find the registration page on the URL amper.xyz/resources. You can also see all of our other webinars we've hosted in the past.
Great.
Great.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.